Afternoon, everyone. Good morning, wherever you're joining from. Thank you so much for joining this wonderful session that we have. A very interesting topic of how advanced analytics is being used in some of the leading brands and companies of the world today, and how some of the top analytics talent in India and abroad are managing their businesses in a very recessionary, challenging business environment. We have an excellent expert quorum here today and wonderful insights that you will learn from the speakers today. Very quickly, I'll walk you through a few of the points with respect to the discussion today. So we have a live webinar where our speakers would be sharing their insights. If you have any such points that you would like to ask, I would request you to please raise those in the chat window. Towards the end of the discussion, we will then be taking up the questions as required. Any unanswered questions in particular to a particular speaker or in general to the panelists would be covered later on post the event. So thank you all for joining us. A quick look at who we are. Today's session is being hosted by TransOrg Analytics. We are one of the leading advanced analytics services and solutions provider, headquartered in Gurgaon, India, but with global operations in Middle East, Asia Pacific, India, and North America. We work with some of the top Fortune 500 clients with a very dedicated and expert team of over 80 data scientists, analysts, data engineers, solving some of the toughest problems in customer and marketing analytics. And of course, in the broader CPG retail, in other areas like supply chain optimization, trade promotion optimization, better forecasting demand, and in general, helping the business heads in solving some of the toughest use cases, helping them in decision making, as well as in generating insights. Our core capabilities, if I could quickly explain to you, are lying in applying advanced analytics solutions on structured as well as unstructured data for, like I said, solving a variety of problems across customer, marketing, risk, operations. We also do a fair bit of work in analytics roadmap consulting, especially for clients that are new in their journey of adopting analytics for business operations. And as part of our broader expertise, we also offer data engineering solutions on cloud, on-prem, dashboards and insights generation, and intelligently applying automation and AI for solving business problems. So the reason today we are gathering today is that we want to hear from our experts, a very esteemed and respected panelists today, how they are navigating the business in an inflationary economy. Yes, today's the numbers that have come in the media and what we've been hearing since early November has been encouraging. There has been a dip in retail inflation in India specifically, while there is runaway inflation in European countries and there is talk of recession in North America. Closer home, we can see some encouraging numbers. Our retail inflation, which is measured by the Consumer Price Index, has reduced slightly from 7.4 to 6.7% in October, which is still a little above the RBI's upper tolerance level, but we are moving in the right trajectory. Even the wholesale price index in India has dipped finally under the double digits where it was lying for the last 19 consecutive months to around 8.4%. However, looking at the news, we can see that RBI is still keeping a very hawkish and a cautionary approach to India. They have hiked interest rates. They have implemented monetary policies and measures to control inflation. Despite that, there has been some elevated inflation in sectors like food and fuel, which we can see, for example, in food products like cereal. It's close to 12.6%. This really hits the bottom of the pyramid in India, where a disproportionate amount of spend they do on food and fuel, as well as core inflation, which is measured in non-food, non-fuel, we can see around 6.14%. Overall, if you look at the industry scenario across the globe, we are seeing headwinds There has been some economic turbulence in businesses, and businesses are taking a more cautious approach. There has been increased measurement, increased pressure to perform. Business teams are taking cautionary approach when it comes to hiring. And unfortunately, we are seeing news from the tech and social companies that there has been mass layoffs, some of which has percolated down to countries like India as well. So we are not immune, I would say, to global impact. And this is where our panelists, we have our esteemed panelists today with us, who would be weighing in from their unique perspectives of how they are helping their companies in navigating this chaotic environment. To begin with, I would like to introduce our panelists. We have Mr. Farhan Khan. He is the Chief Information Officer of Allied Blenders and Distillers, with over 27 years of rich leadership experience in companies like Radico Khaitan, VLCC Lafarge, and now at Allied Blenders, and strong global leadership across USA, China, UAE, Hong Kong, and India. He is a digital business transformation specialist in information system management, IT services, business development, project management, and in adoption of RPA, business analytics, and IT for business problem solving. Welcome, Farhan. We also have today on our panel, Ms. Ruchi Bubber. She is the Head of Sales and Revenue Growth Analytics at Pernod Ricard, with over 22 years of rich experience in deploying data analytics, strategy design, and reporting operations for some of the top Fortune 100 companies like American Express, Coca-Cola, and now at Pernod Ricard, having navigated from financial services to the CPG domain. She has incubated and spearheaded Global Analytics Center of Excellence with expertise in leading and developing high-performance teams in revenue growth, stakeholder management, and strategic partner management in a global setup. Last but not least, we have Mr. Vijoe Matthews. He is the Global Director of Analytics at InBev, with 17 years of data science leadership experience in incubating, launching, and managing large-scale teams in centers of excellences for companies like InBev, Honeywell, and Tesco, with a strong specialization in applying machine learning, deep learning, IoT, and developing advanced analytics products and managing the big data stack. He specializes in managing data science teams in their technical monitoring, project pipeline and development, managing the data monetization projects, driving the data profit and loss management across key areas like retail, FMCG, CPG, supply chain, and logistics. Welcome aboard our speakers. Today's forum is being hosted by myself. A quick introduction to me. I have over 16 years of experience in providing advanced analytics consulting services to some of the top Indian and MNC companies. I work with the business heads and functional heads in adopting analytics for solving business problems and driving the decisions. And we have with us our VP of CPG and Retail Analytics, Mr. Jakpreet Singh, who has over 15 years of experience of driving large-scale analytics projects for CPG and retail companies. So welcome aboard our panelists. I'd like to start our discussion by taking a viewpoint from all the three panelists on what you think are the current near-term and long-term inflationary and business growth outlook for our economy, India, and in general for the rest of the world. So may I request Mr. Vijoe to start the quorum, and then we'll follow it up with Farhan and Ruchi as well.
Very relevant question, Shuchita, right? If you think about in the past, the inflation of India was seen as an outlier, right, with 7% inflation. But today, if you look at it, even the Western markets, Europe is a classic example where they're going, US where it's going, the price of commodities, right? And especially for companies that operate across the globe, the effects, rate variations, because we all report our profits in dollars. And if you think about it, all the other currencies are suffering against it. If you think about the Brazilian real or the Mexican pesos, or all those currencies are also struggling. So it's a very, very challenging environment. And for us, again, for AB InBev, it's more challenging because AB InBev plays in a space where it's if you ask me, is it absolute necessary to have beer in a time where it's tough to survive? I wouldn't say yes, right? It's not. It's something that we can live without. So operating in a market where people are struggling to meet the ends in the Western market especially, and in India, right? It's a reality in India also. So we need to have a niche. We need to have a USP on why, out of all the products available in the market, why going with the products that we are bringing. The kind of market presence that we need to build, the kind of premiumization we need to build for our products becomes very relevant. And second part is being very cost conscious, being able to produce more for less becomes the mantra for most of these companies, because especially with the space which I am coming from, which is beverages, we cannot increase the price based on the beyond a certain limit, right? Beyond a certain limit, we cannot increase the prices based on the inflation also, right? It's a very regulated market in most of the places. So the question comes to how will you survive in a market like this, doing two things, right? Either you need to increase your revenue, that will take the hit, or you should reduce the cost. So analytics in our company is being used for both the places. How to reduce the cost of your manufacturing and make it more affordable. And second thing is how will you increase your cost, your revenue substantially, which increases EBITDA, and that takes a hit on the commodity prices and the FX changes that we are seeing across the globe.
Wonderful, Vijoe. Completely aligned with you on that, and we'll dig more on that particular topic later. May I request Farhan to quickly weigh in from his viewpoint on this?
Yeah, Shuchita, thank you so much. I think Vijoe has largely covered the question that you have asked for. But inflation is primarily a very sensitive index. There are two areas which hits the inflation. First is the pandemic that I think we all have gone through it. And second aspect, which is still going on, is a Ukraine war. By any means of it, it is hitting at the end of the day. And as Vijoe has said, that whatever the business that we are in, we are importing some kind of material which is being used for our products. For example, if you look at in our industry, we are using special spirits. So these special spirits we are not making in India. So we are importing from the third world. Now, the availability of material, of course, is one of the area. As we said that the price, which is the MRP price, maximum retail price, is governed by the state. And of course, this industry is a very price sensitive. If it goes from 1 rupees or 5 rupees up and down, the whole product has come onto a different categories, and the adoption is also one of the issues. So two perspective, as Vijoe has said. First is how we are going to see the impact on the cost, which is building up, because it is something like what you call is cost push market, industry, I would say, because whenever there is an inflation which is going to hurt, it is going to be observed by us. And first point, which is very important for all of us to understand, we are not part of GST. That means whatever GST that we are paying, it is building my cost. Because while I'm selling my product, I'm not charging GST because I'm out of GST. So if I'm buying CC box, I'm buying mono carton, I'm buying bottles or caps, whatever material I'm buying, I'm paying GST. So those tax also comes into. So if any price increase of a tax also, that means my cost is going to be built up. Of course, analytic is the only way by which we can understand, or we can see the solution, what is the solution is going to be. But as Vijoe has said, it is impacting largely on both the side, whether it is a sales side and of course, on a cost side as well.
Wonderful, Farhan. So I think, Ruchi, I'll quickly ask you to also weigh in, coming from the sales and revenue growth specialization. What is your thought on the current economic scenario, and where do you think we are leading towards on this front?
Yeah. No, so I think summed up pretty well in terms of where we are, right? We're looking at a 7% inflation. That's the current outlook. But I do feel that some of the 2 to 3 year outlooks is around going to be 5%. So whatever headwinds we are seeing because of geopolitical scenarios plus the spillover effect of the pandemic, I think in the next 2 to 3 years, it's going to start easing out, right? And the current rates are going to go down significantly to a 4.9 to 5%. So I'm bullish. And I do believe that this is also an opportunity for most companies to go back to the drawing board in terms of innovation, right? Because in times like this, what happens is that there are new emerging trends that come up. There are new consumer cohorts that come up. The buying patterns change. And that this is a very good time to understand the dynamics, right? And plan ahead in terms of innovation pipeline, right? So I think it's an opportunity. It's a tough situation, but also an opportunity to understand how data can help, right? So that after that 2-year time period, once you've gone back to your 4.95%, you are fully armed, right, to tap into the next wave. So I think I'm a little bullish. I'm not too pessimistic by the current numbers, but I do think it's a time to go back to the drawing board and innovate. And that's exactly the sentiment in the current company for us. And I would say this would be the sentiment in most other organizations, be it FMCG, retail, who are battling these trends.
Wonderful. So one question that I had is that, there's been a lot of conversations that post-pandemic, there has been a change in consumer behavior, especially some industries like e-commerce, banking. There has been a fundamental change in the way customers are behaving. What has been your observation in particular in your industry, AlcoBev industry, or in general, your perception about consumer behaviors in CPG? Do you see a marked change in the way you define customer segments across retail, across HoReCa, and also the consumer behaviors within those customer segments? Any perspective that you would have to share on that?
Yeah. So I think there has been a shift. The role that the online channel, the retail channel plays is far more prominent now, right? So I think the shift is about personalization and reaching out to the right consumer with the right product, right? And that's where your hyper personalization as a trend has become extremely important, where data analytics plays a very, very important role. Now, can that be done a lot in AlcoBev? Maybe not, but we are as leaders talking about the larger industries, and for sure, new cohorts have come in. For example, even in AlcoBev, the LDA, the minimum drinking age, has changed in certain states, right? Now that's bringing new cohorts to the table, right? Now, which are the segments that are going to meet, or recruit those new cohorts come into play? And that's where data analytics really makes a lot of difference. Understanding them, who are they, who are the buyers, what are the recruitment price points for them? All of this is extremely data driven, right? So I do feel that A, there are new cohorts that are emerging. B, because of the shift towards online, there are larger cohorts in rural areas. And I'm not talking about AlcoBev here, I'm talking about in general, who are also purchasing and buying online, right, through their mobiles. And for sure, with 5G coming in, it's going to be a lot more immersive consumer experience, which manufacturers will have to look at, where analytics will play a very, very important role, which I'm talking about as a personalization of the recommendation for products. I think that's my take on, and the other panelists can join in.
Sure.
No, just to add, right? I think we all say, right, most of the innovations that's helping us today, they came during the time of First and Second World War. Every war has boosted innovation, right? That's a common finding, and that's also the same case with COVID. If you think about the amount of digitization that happened over the last 2 years, it's unbelievable. Over the last 3 years, all the companies across the globe, they are spending billions and billions of dollars on digitizing the process. I'm not just talking about the sales part of it. Starting from manufacturing till the end consumer, everybody spent billions of dollars on digitization. And as analytics professionals, we are in a great place, because all those data, all the investment that we made in digitization for the last 3 years, that's giving a great impact today, right? And that data is available with us today to do something really great that can increase revenue and reduce costs, right? And again, talking, Suji, about the shopping patterns, obviously, right? COVID taught us a lot of things, right? And we learned a lot of things. We never thought that our kids could study from home for 2 years, right? The definition of job that could be outsourced, it changed. Everything is changing over the last 2 years, right? A great example, right? Great example is beer is considered as a social drink, right? Normally people drink beer in groups and spirits in smaller groups, like in a close group. So our biggest concern was during COVID, will our sales sustain? Because beer is meant for outdoor, beer is meant for, large gathering, it's a community drink, it's a social drink, right? But the fact is that our sales only increased over the last 2 years, which means that, the perception that even beer can only be sold when there is large gathering happening, that's changed over the last 2 years, because the entire world adopted to new ways of living, right? Their shopping patterns, their liking, the kind of, beer they love, products they love, the way they want to buy it, the way they want to get it customized. So entire gambit of all of that changed, right? And last but not the least, every analytical solution, in most cases, what we built pre-COVID, right? That's a most common term, right? Pre-COVID, many of them won't even stand a chance of performing today. Take an example of a forecasting model, right? A volume forecast model that we built in 2019 with 99% accuracy, and today it won't work. Because the variables that influence sales or overdue or whatever, right? It completely changed over the last 2 years. That again brings a lot of significance in the space of analytics, because first, the trend of shoppers, the shopping patterns and all of that, customer liking, all of that. Second, the fact that we have so much of data available, digitization boom that we saw in the last 2 years, that puts us in a great place to do something really transformational to help business either to grow their businesses or to reduce their cost.
Wonderful insights. In fact, I also concur with you on this, Vijoe, that a lot of the industries are seeing a huge shift in the increasing the moments of consumption of their products, which, like you rightly said, beer as an example is more of a social product, and how the companies have been able to sustain and even grow consumption of the product through at-home consumption of the product. Now, in certain states in India, you can even buy alcohol and alcoholic products online. So there's been, of course, some huge shift in the way consumers can consume this product. So that's a completely this thing. Do you think these consumer behaviors are going to become more permanent in nature and going forward, or you will see some more new behaviors of consumers to come up? What is your anticipation on that now with new age information coming in from metaverse and all? So what is your take on that? How do brands in the AlcoBev and in general would plan to engage with audiences digitally going forward?
Yeah, Shuchita, if you see in India, specifically we are talking about the spirits, that what the spirit we manufacture, this is called IMFL, Indian Made Foreign Liquor. Then there is another category that we call as a BOI. So these categories, like largely, if you see, this category has increased in this year is by 200%.
Wow.
That means this category is not being manufactured in India. It is coming from the origin of a space. For example, if there is a brand, it has been manufactured in Spain. So it is being imported from Spain and it's coming in India. This is the one set of terms. The second terms is, if you look at the liquor industries, largely it's dominated by the two companies. One is a Diageo and second is a Pernod. They have about 58 to 60% market of India. In counter to Indian market, there are Indian companies as well, Allied Blender, Retico Khetan, Jagajit. There are other companies, those are having their own brand. If you look at the trend which is coming now, is they are also launching their product into a niche market. Now, what is the niche market is basically? The trend which has now started, as you understand, the new generation is more like a vodka drinker because the smell is not coming out. So they prefer to drink which nobody can see that what they are drinking. Now there is another drink which is coming, which is called the gin. For the last 2 years, the gin is moving with the CAGR of 22%. And the vodka consumptions has reached to a mature level. So in vodka in India, it is 4% market. Globally, it is 11% market. So the consumption and the behavior of a product is basically is moving from one level to another level, and which basically push the market. That means the people, those are making a brand, to see the brand into a different, tangent. Earlier, you are a supplier of whiskey, you are a manufacturer of whiskey. Now look at the consumption which is happening, not in India and even abroad. We also export about 170 countries as well. So we also see that the brand which is being consumed by the consumer is what is the percentage is happening as an industry. If you look at whiskey, is about largely it has been consumed by whiskey, whether it is in north or the western part of India. South, if you see, it's just like a brandy kind of industry. So those changes is impact the brand strategy for the company, to make a new brand and reach out to the consumer, where they are not looking for even IMFL, they are looking for a niche brand like a single malt whiskey. If you look at, you might have heard about Amrut, Rampur Select. These are the two brands, those are globally being accepted, not by the Indian, but globally accepted, one of the best brands for the single malt whiskey. Now, looking this success factor, there is an industry called John. Other companies also, they are in process of launching a single malt whiskey. Now, single malt whiskey is one of the success which has been set up by the Indian companies. Now, others are following with the gin, with the vodka, and other brand that we guys are into. So consumption and the pattern of a consumer changes the company strategy, which brand, which segment, which category they want to launch it.
Wonderful, Farhan. So this is great insights. Shifting the topic a little further to a different tangent, and while I do that, I'll request the attendees to please share your questions in the Q&A section. We'll pick them up towards the end of the discussion. Quickly, I'll move, to an area of more in terms of revenue generation management, how companies in this space are, planning for areas like assortment planning, on pricing, on investment for growth. So I'll request Ruchi to weigh in a little bit in these areas and delve a little further on these topics. How do you see consumers actively, like for example, Farhan was saying there's been a new cohorts coming, new products coming in. So any thoughts on how companies are planning for their assortment planning or investing in their trade offers, consumer offers in this space?
Yeah. So I think RGM and revenue growth is one of the critical pillars for most organizations, right? Yeah. And one of the key focus areas, for the current company and my previous companies was to increase the throughput in the stores, right? Which is at the point of sale, where the consumer is coming and picking up the product. How can you increase your throughput, right? So the element of activation, availability, reduction in stockouts, understanding the store type, which means that analytics plays a very important role in building store cohorts, right? So you can't be having the same assortment across all stores, right? There could be stores which are at transit locations. There could be stores which are right in the middle of a mall. There could be stores next to a residential area. And these stores have very different consumer archetypes, right? The consumer spend differently, consumer frequency of buying is different, the kind of products they're looking for is different. So I think the assortment planning is an extremely important part where data analytics plays an important role, and where a lot of modeling, machine learning modeling goes into putting and understanding the store cohorts, right? And then putting the market mix, an assortment mix to the field and activating the right facings, right. Looking at the velocity of the movement of a product. So there's all of this is actually data driven, right? So I think that is one big area, that getting the right activation, availability, and the right assortment mix is extremely important, and that's been one focus area for most organizations, be it alcohol, retail, or FMCG. Okay. I think the second part is a lot of our investments go behind either trade spends, right, or consumer offers, wherever permissible, right? Right. Now, the impact of those promotions is very, very minimally assessed in most organizations. So you're putting a lot of money, but you're not understanding the ROI. So how do you optimize your spend? So there's a lot of focus and a lot of analytics that is currently being done, where you say what price, what offer on a particular product price works, what is the perceived value on the product as a freebie works, right? And even things like looking at the basket data. And in some industries, it's possible, right? To understand what are consumers purchasing together, what are the adjacencies. And then you plan your the multi-pack, drives, or the adjacency drives, or the freebie drives, completely data-driven, right? So I think that's the second part, that understanding the ROIs of investments, be it your trade spends or be it consumer offers. And in trade spend also there's analytics, because you need to understand which outlets are sensitive to trade spend versus outlets which are not sensitive to trade spends, right? So I think that's the second lever where there's a lot of focus happening. And I think the third lever is getting the pricing strategies right. And I know in this regulated industry, too much is not possible, but still there are headrooms, and there are some states where there are possibilities of government policy approved price increases, where you want to understand the price sensitivities. And that's where data analytics plays an extremely important role. So I think these are three big areas where I feel revenue growth plays a very important role.
Sure. Just quickly, out of curiosity, Ruchi, while consumer-facing businesses have access to external validated data like credit bureau and all for solving customer analytics problems, how is it in your industry? Do you get access to external data to embellish insights based on your internal data?
There are two ways. So there are definitely syndicated data which don't give you offtake, which is tertiary, but they do give you the secondaries, right? Which is maybe the shipment from the wholesaler to the retail, right? That's the level. I think that itself is important data to be looked at in this industry. And in certain industries also, there are ways to capture point of sale data. Say there's technology, one can put that technology in very, say, big stores, liquor stores, and get POS data as a sample, right? So I think those are some of the ways and investments which one can do to understand what consumers are buying. And if you look at some of the metropolitan cities, a lot of liquor companies actually look like modern trade outlets. You will see it in Bangalore, you'll also see it in Gurgaon. The assortment is extremely strong, right? It's extremely well placed, strong. And those are the places where you can see emerging consumer behavior, like even women becoming extremely critical as a cohort, and they are walking into the stores and buying. So those shifts can be really captured from POS.
Wonderful. Great insights on that, Ruchi. I'll pivot the conversation a bit towards more on building business efficiencies and improving cost optimization. That's where I'll request Vijoe to weigh in, given that as a global analytics director at InBev, and his perspective, not just on India, but also the other countries and regions that you're managing, Vijoe. What are some of the innovations and efficiencies that and automations you're driving at InBev? And in general, your take on that.
Yeah. So before that, right, Ruchi, let me give you some interesting stats, right? InBev is a 54 billion revenue company. Our annual VIC cost, variable industrial cost, which means all the raw material that we buy, that's 25 billion. Our logistics cost itself is like 5 billion. Any given point of time, we carry stock worth 5 billion, right? Our out of stock is worth 1.7 billion, which means that we are not able to produce enough to sell an additional 1.7 billion just because of the constraints with production. And our obsolescence is pretty much like 100 million, which means that we are every year throwing out beer worth 100 million because it reached the end of life cycle and we couldn't take it to the customer, right? So this entire space is managed by supply chain, right? Supply chain is nothing but you're starting with your procurement, right? Then with suppliers and manufacturing, and then logistics, which takes to the end customer, right? So in the interest of time, let me give you some examples, right, on how we are transforming is all these three spaces, right, which is basically it starts everything with procuring, right? So if you can procure at the right cost, that makes a big difference, right? It can effectively reduce the cost of production if you can procure at the right price. So think about it. We hedge a lot of these commodities. So in a beer market, right, our biggest commodities are corn, rice, aluminium, right, barley, right, diesel. So there are a lot of commodities that we hedge, right? And if we can use a lot of science, in identifying the price forecast for all these products for the next 6 months, next 1 year, next 2 years, which is not an easy task, right? But if you can do that with good perfection, we can be very bullish with your hedging strategy, right? You can hedge in such a way that you end up buying things at a better rate. And that's exactly what we are doing with all the commodities. What we are doing now is we are doing the commodity price forecasting. which allows us to forecast the price of all these basic commodities in different markets. We buy from different markets across the globe. It's a global company, right? We buy this products from different parts of the raw materials from different parts of the world. For every market, we are trying to understand how the cost is going to move up and down over the next 2 years, next 3 years.
Right.
And we are building our entire hedging strategy again. Hedging again, if you think about it, we have a lot of econometric models that's used for hedging, right? But what we are replacing them is very advanced AI-based models, which uses pretty much like 1,000 variables to actually tell how to hedge if you have the right price forecast for the next few years. And that's making a huge impact on our procurement. Second thing, what we are doing is that we are moving away from conventional procurement to auction-based procurement, which means that we have something called an auction platform where players from different parts of the world can bid for the same offering, right? And what we are doing is we're building a platform, a solution called e-auction, which is again an AI-enabled solution that helps us to get the best out of all these providers who are bidding on that platform, right?
Yeah.
Again, that's making a huge impact. That's making a huge impact in our company, right? So the fact that we are moving away from traditional way of procuring to a platform-based procurement, that's making a huge difference, right? So in this time, let me talk 2 examples in procurement, right? Then let's talk about the manufacturing, which is nothing but breweries. Like I said, we are not able to produce at least 1.7. If we can produce more, we can take our sales by another 1.7 billion. Today, we are not able to do it because with the current constraints of capex and all of that, we are not in a place to exponentially increase the number of breweries across the globe. There's an opportunity for us to improve the production of the breweries. Mm-hmm. So there's a metric called GLY, gross layout yield, right? That actually tells how effective your breweries are. Currently, our breweries stays in the range of 70 to 80%, which means that there's still an opportunity to improve our GLY by another few percentages. And every 1% improve in GLY means, I cannot disclose the numbers, but it's millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in additional production capacity for the brewery. But again, it's complex. Like think about a brewery process, from packaging to the raw materials to the planning at different phases. You should be able to create an AI model that will optimize the entire chain, the entire process in such a way that it finally improves the GLY. And then we call it, the performance management systems, right? Mm-hmm. This is exactly we are doing in breweries. We are building very advanced AI solutions to ensure that, the GLY is improved and we are able to produce more and sell more, right? Another example is that we have a lot of quality checks, and it's all done by brewmasters. And that's a time-consuming process, and that's prone to error also. I'm not saying it's too prone to error, but still we make a lot of mistakes and we lose a lot of beer. We are building a solution that, AI solution that will actually quality check real time or near real time, right? At every given point in time, we know how the quality is improving, or how it's performing against the fermentation process, basically, right? Because beer is a fermented product. It takes anywhere between 1 day to 3 or 4 days to ferment to close the entire process. So building a lot of AI there. Then it comes to final part, which is taking it to the customers, right? Again, a lot of examples. How will you optimize your deployment and redeployment, right? How can you do optimization on your deployment and redeployment that reduces your auto stocks and your availability and your obsolescence, right? That's great, one example. Another example is we are going with the concept of flexible delivery, which means that if the customers are open, we will give them the best windows for delivery and we give them a better rate of delivery. Mm-hmm. And that works equally good for both of us. It's good for us because we know that based on the AI solutions that we're building, what is the best window of delivery for different customers in different parts of the world, based on, again, hundreds and hundreds of variables, right? It's good for the end consumer because he's also getting the product for cheap, right? So this is how we are actually transforming the entire space of supply chain to ensure that we are producing more, we are procuring at a lower cost, and our cost on transport is reduced, and our cost to serve the customer is also reduced.
Great, great. Thank you, Vijoe. Wonderful perspective. I'll quickly jump the conversation to Farhan because we would love to hear from you, Farhan. I believe data is the new oil, but technology is the backbone for the analytics teams to, fuel the business engine. Can you talk a little bit about, from the CTO's perspective, how do you weigh in the CapEx versus OpEx kind of decisions when it comes to technology adoption? Do you see more shift in spend towards RPA, AI, cloud migration in the industry? Is there greater receptivity towards that? What would be your viewpoint on this?
Right. Thank you, Shuchita. See, what I see is the cloud is a new normal. So it's every architecture, enterprise architecture has to welcome it. Post-pandemic, digitalization is one of the key management aspirations to be built all across wherever there is a possibility. So pre-pandemic, yeah, digitalization was a part of IT roadmap, but now it is a part of IT. So there are two set of investment which is going on. As you see, there are a lot of OEM like SAP, Oracle, Microsoft. They all are going only for a cloud way. So you have to go and choose your path accordingly. And similarly, if you look at the digital technologies which is hitting, and of course which is being now adoptions is very high, specifically for the RPA. It's also it's largely it is on cloud. So if you're putting on-prem, I think it's you are not getting the best of ROI. We have worked on it. We have done the exercise, and we found that going for a cloud is one of the best way of adopting RP on it. Second thing, which is AI. Of course, AI is not as mature as RPA, and of course, it depends upon on what case you are going to build that AI all around. So, being the maturity is one of the concern area for the AI. RPA is a short deliverable. So there are POCs that we are running all around AI in cases of production, in cases of predictabilities, in cases of demand planning and other areas. But if you go for RPA, it's like you just design what kind of automations you want to get out of it, and it is available on the shelf. So the cloud, as you asked, is something which is help organization to look at the agility if they want to look at the agility in their platform or the architecture. So every organizations, I believe, because I connected few CIOs also, they all are looking for adoption of a cloud as a new norm.
Great. Thank you, Farhan, so much for your perspective on this. Very quickly, before we move into the delegates' attendee questions, Jappreet, would you like to weigh in a little bit here on some of your personal experience on the things coming from TransOrg? You'd like to share quickly your insights?
Yeah, sure, Suchita. I completely resonate to what Farhan you mentioned, that on-premises has a lower ROI than moving to cloud, right? And going forward, even there are a lot of, we get in touch with a lot of clients who want to move to the cloud, and they are under consideration whether they want to go on Azure, GCP, or AWS, or maybe they are already sitting there, but they don't know how to utilize it, right? So they are looking for data engineers, data architectures. So we have a lot of discussions which we have around this topic of cloud. And so it's quite interesting. And this shift has also come, likewise, Vijoe, you mentioned that after post-COVID, right, there's a very big digitization which has happened, because of which there's a lot of, hue and cry to move to the cloud so that the systems are accessible and they are available as and when required. Also, Ruchi, I completely resonate with your point of view that assortment mix, market mix, they are the key solutions on which we should be working. So to combat inflation, right? We cannot have same pricing, same price across all the stores. We cannot have same assortment across all the stores. And therefore, again, there are a lot of solutions which are available, on-the-shelf solutions which are available in the market, and we keep on exploring those solutions, deploy them across different clients. But in my experience, maybe we can have different opinions. The on-the-shelf solutions, they do not give us the good ROIs in the long run. Maybe they are quick because of plug and play. They can be deployed very easily, but over a period of time, they have lack of flexibility. And therefore, in TransOrg, we use we provide end-to-end services wherein we deploy these solutions end-to-end on the custom solutions, basically, and not the on-the-shelf solutions. So overall, it was a good session, Shuchita.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Chappi. Very quickly, I'll take a few of the attendee questions. I know some the team is collecting more as we speak. One question that is targeted for Farhan. The question is, how can we use AI and ML to improve production or enhance customer experience? For example, programs like Diageo's Vijoe whiskey, or to avoid beer spillage. So, any take on that in smart packaging, and how can AI help us in that?
See, other than smart packaging, there is the production of a liquor is a line production. So that means in one line, the bottle comes as an empty bottle that we call is a bottle section, bottle wash section, where the bottle is washed. And there is a process. There are 4 or 5 processes which the bottle has to go through. Then there is a filling section. After the filling section, there is a capping, labeling, and then there is a quality, and then goes to the CC box. Now, one box is equal to 9.09 liter alcohol. That's the strength that we have. So if it is 750 bottle, that means there are 12 bottles. If it is 375, then there are 24 bottles. If it is 90 ml, then the 48 bottles. Now, 180 bottle means 48. 180 size is 48 bottles. Now, what AI is now, we are doing the experiment is all around. The maturity, as I said, is one of the key concern area. After capping, means my filling has happened, the label has already been stick to the bottle, then the cap also put it. We do a quality check. Now there are almost 15 to 18 parameters. Means if there is no, the liquor, which is basically the liquid, the bottle means the cap, and of course the label, it is being pasted correctly. There is no any ingredients of third ingredients in the, means there are 18 to 15 quality checks which happens, which there is it manually done by the people. We are now exploring to build an AI platform where the bottle will come, and based on the trained analytics, the cameras will take their pictures and do the analysis. Based on those analytics, the quality will be passed and it will be go back for a packing. Now we are exploring it. We have reached to 67% of the maturity. And of course, it takes some time to reach there. But this is going to be revolutionary for this industry, because this is something which basically help to increase the production. If you look at the automatic lines, which we produce about 500 bottles per minute, and on that speed, if my quality has been checked, that means my output is going to be increased. Right. So this is one of the experiment that we are doing.
Great.
In our factories.
Great. So I know in the interest of time, we have overshot the time a little bit, and I know the panelists have a hard stop at 5. Very quickly, I'll take one last question, and I'll request any one of the panelists to weigh in on this. What is the growth of the non-alcohol beverage market? We've talked a lot about alcohol beverage market. Where's the the potential for this to grow, given there's been proliferation of brands in this space? So any one of the panelists, if they can, quickly weigh in on that.
Yeah, NAM is nothing but non-alcoholic beer for us. It's a very, very strong growing market across the globe, not just in India, right?
Right.
And we are going to another space called beyond beer. Beyond beer means beer which is, it's not just beer, right? It's beer and beyond. caffeine-infused beer, for example, right? It's a great example, right? Like an energizer. So it's actually a growing market. In India itself, we introduced Budweiser 0.0, Hugarden 0.0, and they're seeing good growth. Year on year, since we are at the start of the journey, the kind of growth that we see is like huge. Obviously, we only started this journey like few years back, and the growth trajectory that we see is huge, right? Because in a market like India, especially, non-alcoholic beer becomes very important, right? Because beer is still alcohol is still not an accepted drink for many, right? And non-alcoholic beer becomes an important offering, right? So even if you don't drink, you can still be part of a party and you can still give a company rather than sipping on any other fussy drink. You can still have beer, but without alcohol. So it's a long story short, it's a very promising space, and we are making huge investments in that space. To be honest.
Great. Thank you, Vijoe, so much on that. Ruchi, can I request you quickly to take this question? There's been a question from one of the attendees that how can we use analytics to leverage or adjust pricing in states which do not allow inflation-adjusted pricing? What is your take? I know you touched upon it briefly on this topic, but very quickly we will take this question as well. What kind of pricing strategies can we deploy where there is a regulatory environment?
So, see, too much can be done in those markets, very honest. Because if the regulatory environment does not allow price increase, there is no point doing any pricing decisions, right? But in certain markets which give that policy or which allow some level of price increases, there are a lot of approaches. Using sensitivity analysis, you can look at historical trends to see how brands respond to price increases. Right, but in markets which are completely government regulated, as per the policy, not allowed, can't give. There is nothing one can do there. You will have to follow the government regulations. Yeah.
Right. Great.
See,
I know we have
the prices of a liquor basically based on the two factors. One is the policy comes on every year for most of the states. Then there is a price increase, if any. So these two factors basically hit the brand price at every aspect of it. Now it is our strategy how we are going to put the brand in which segment, because sometime they increase the taxes, MRP will remain same. That means it is going to hit my cost. Sometimes they allow us to take a price increase, but as Ruchi has said, looking at the price sensitivity and looking at the environmental aspect of the state, we take a final call whether we want to go ahead with the price increase or we don't want to go ahead with the price increase.
Sure. Great. Thank you so much, panelists. I know there are more questions popping up, but in the interest of time, I will request the delegates to park their questions for later. You can always share those at our email ID, which is info@transorg.com. I would like to thank once again Mr. Farhan Khan, Mr. Vijoe Mathew, and Ms. Ruchi Bubber for sharing excellent insights, whether it comes to understanding how consumer behaviors have changed, how we can better intelligently spend our sales and marketing programs to improve customer contacts and build sales, how we can adopt technology and specifically low-hanging fruits when it comes to process automation instead of taking wild bets in AI sometimes, and of course, more importantly, how to manage the end profitability and bottom line by building in cost efficiencies, making sure the products reach at the best possible time with the lowest amount of cost. There are wonderful use cases which the panelists have shared. I'll request the attendees to please follow our panelists on social media, on LinkedIn, to follow some of the insights that they are regularly sharing with the broader industry. Thank you once again for your time and for all the wonderful insights that you have shared today. I'm sure the attendees have taken a lot of new perspective, especially from the niche industry of AlcoBev, and how in even a regulated, tough business environment, you're helping the companies in navigating and sustaining sales as well as growth. Thank you once again to all our panelists.
Thank you, Shuchita. It's really a pleasure. It's an honor. Thank you, Vijoe. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ruchi. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you
so
all.
much.
Thank you for the
Thank
opportunity.
you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you, everyone.